Sahara Desert is the world's largest and most well-known desert. Only Antarctica is bigger, but we don't usually think of a continent covered with ice as a desert. The majority of people think of a desert as having a hot sun, a lack of rain, and lots of sand. Only sand. The Sahara is roughly the same size as half of Russia or all of Brazil in terms of territory. Did you know that there are large deposits of oil and gas that have been covered? Sand dunes in the Sahara Desert can reach heights of 160 to 180 meters, which is higher than a 70-story building. It's the Sahara Desert. But what's behind the dry, sandy landscape? Why use sand? Why is there so much sand? Where did it come from in the beginning? Has it always been like that in the Sahara? Imagine that not that long ago at all, these huge areas were full of life. Then, though, things went wrong. What is under the Sahara's sands to begin with? Let's start with what you need to know about the Sahara. From west to east, the desert is 4,800 kilometers long, and from north to south, it is between 800 and 1,200 kilometers. It takes up 30% of the continent of Africa. More than Brazil's territory, it has an area of 8.6 million square kilometers. Is this whole big area made of sand? No, and many people would be surprised to hear this, but only 20% of the Sahara is made up of sand. In those places, you can see the typical, easily recognizable landscape with beautiful dunes. The layer of sand on the surface is about 150 meters thick on average. There are ridges on their own that are up to 300 meters high, but rocks and cliffs make up most of the rest of the Sahara. You're about to find out what amazing things the sand, rocks, and stones hide. The desert is a lot more mysterious and interesting than you might think. Scientists hypothesized a long time ago that the Sahara wasn't always a lifeless desert the way it is now. It used to be a beautiful place with lots of flowers. It was only a theory until recently, though, due to the lack of supporting data. Scientists found something unexpected under the sands of the desert. Scientists found a huge reservoir that was clearly not part of any of the ancient seas. It turned out to be the remains of an ancient paleolake that formed about 250,000 years ago, when the Nile broke through a low channel in the area of what is now Wadi Tashka Bay on Lake Nasser. The water flooded the eastern Sahara, making a lake that at its largest covered more than 108,000 square kilometers. The ancient lake was 4 times the size of Lake Erie, or twice the size of Lake Michigan. At the same time, another lake about 48,000 square meters in size also formed. Geologist Ted Maxwell of the U.S. National Air and Space Museum and his colleagues first discovered signs of both lakes in 2010. They were looking at data from one of the Space Shuttle's radar topography missions. The lakes were covered in ice. Geologists could draw the shape of an ancient megadune by looking at pictures of water and wind-blown sediments and stable rocks that could be seen through radar under the desert sands. The fact that the desert was so dry made it easier to get accurate information about the ancient secret buried under the Saharan sands. Low humidity and a uniform geological structure made it possible for the radars to pick up all the fine details of the ground below. Scientists found fossil fish remains in the sediments about 400 kilometers west of the Nile River, about 250 meters above sea level, to mark the lake's highest shoreline. By putting all of the data into one model, the researchers were able to confirm that the Nile once filled the whole Kizibet-Tuska Depression in Egypt with water, making the huge lake. Paleolithic human settlements near Egypt's Selima and Tarfawi areas also point to a lake being there. The lake has supported the growth and expansion of a wide range of plants and animals for many thousands of years. However, it was doomed in the long run due to its sudden emergence. The water was going away and evaporating faster than it could come back. In the end, the lake dried up and sand filled in the bottom. But people kept living in the area. Many scientific studies show that at least 5,000 years ago, the Sahara was full of plants and animals and covered in lush greenery. In 2015, scientists would be able to answer the question with a full explanation. In 2015, the journal Nature Communications put out an article with the results of new research that caused a stir in the scientific world. With the help of the radar observation scientific tool Pulsar Phased Array Type L-band Synthetic Aperture Radar on the Japanese satellite ALOS, Advanced Land Observing Satellite, scientists discovered the bed of a large river with a large network of tributaries. A huge ancient river called the Taman Russet River is thought to have flowed through West Africa as recently as 5,000 years ago. It was said to come from the south of the Atlas Mountains and the Ahagar Mountains, both of which are now in Algeria. The river was named Taman Russet after a town in Algeria that was in that area and had an oasis. With all of its branches, the river was more than 500 kilometers long and flowed into the Atlantic Ocean near Mauritania. The Taman Russet River basin was thought to have been rich in animals and plants in ancient times by scientists. It stopped being wet after 2,000 years. If the river was still there today, it would be the 12th longest river in the world. Scientific theory holds that the river has been coming and going for the past 245,000 years, appearing and disappearing. The time fits with when the ancient lake in question was there. In any case, the river was a good source of water that turned the area in the middle of Africa into a lush green paradise. Even now, there are still signs of big water there. They are well-known oasis towns in the Sahara. They get their water from currents and underground lakes that are hidden by the sands. If you dig deeper into the sands of time, the story of the Sahara gets even more interesting and surprising. Back in prehistoric times, millions of years ago, everything was different. During the Mesozoic, the area that is now the Sahara was covered by the water of the Tethys Protozoan. The Basilosaurus, which is the ancestor of whales today, lived there in large numbers. During Wadi al-Haytham excavations in Egypt, their enormous fossilized remains were discovered. These animals' bones stayed at the bottom of the ocean for millions of years until the ocean slowly dried up and turned into the Mediterranean and Black Seas. The bottom of the ocean rose up and turned into land. The Sahara is sometimes called the Valley of the Whale because there are so many fossils from the ancient ocean that can be found there. Believe it or not, you can find fossilized bones of the herbivorous sauropod, one of the largest dinosaurs, under the sands in various parts of the Sahara. These bones are from the ancient sea. This was an unexpected find that piqued scientific interest. The giant dinosaur was 32 meters long and could have weighed as much as 60 tons. But the discovery of the bones of a type of ancient monsters that had never been seen before topped even that. In 2016, archaeologists in Egypt made a new discovery that was very interesting. The fossilized bones of a creature called Mansurosaurus were found by Egyptian and American paleontologists led by Dr. Heshan Solomon of Mansour University. In the scientific world, their discovery caused a big stir. The fossils were finally put into a new ancient species and genus in 2018. It turned into the holy grail of paleontology. But as interesting as the history of animals in the Sahara is, the most interesting thing is how people were able to live there. Let's read amazing stories from the history books of ancient people that are full of exciting events. We need to look beneath the Saharan sands. For many thousands of years, people have lived on the territory of the present-day Sahara. Because the weather changed often, they came and went. They made settlements, but then left them. Archaeologists found human bones that pointed to more than one community. It's likely that some groups were more organized than primitive pastoralism. Due to increased rainfall, the lowlands of Fayum and Napta, which have a lot of sediment, as well as the oasis of Bir Kasiba, became livable at some point. People moved down the Nile, and by the 10th millennium BC, they were living all over the eastern Sahara. Since the 7th millennium BC, there have been large settlements with a high level of social organization. The oldest pieces of pottery date to the 6th millennium BC and were covered in ash. The pottery from the Nile Valley near Cairo is similar in style and is decorated with intricate colored ornaments. Archaeological findings show a higher level of social organization than in the Nile Valley. The discovery of several ancient megalithic structures at Napta Playa is significant. It is likely that they are ancient astronomical monuments like Stonehenge. There is a good chance that at least one of these megalithic structures is an early calendar circle. At the same time, scientists like astrophysicist Thomas J. Brophy think that these structures had religious meaning. He says that the archaeological records of Napta Playa show that the sacred symbols date back to the 5th millennium BC. Their simple meanings talk about things that were very useful to nomads: cattle, water, death, the earth, the sun, and the stars. More buildings that are important to history are buried in the sands of the Sahara. The ancient Saharan people known as the Garamants, who Herodotus mentioned, built these fortifications. Between 200 BC and 700 AD, they lived in the majority of Saharan territory. Even though it was already a desert, the Garamantes learned how to get water out of the ground and built canals that irrigated fields and farms and gave towns and fortresses water to drink. The smooth edges of ancient man-made channels that were covered in sands were visible to scientists thanks to three-dimensional satellite images. But as the channels dried up and the sand filled in the settlements, the dry climate took over. Let's reassure our smart audience that talking about creatures from other worlds is science fiction. At the same time, the Sahara has kept in its sands proof of things that happened in space. On the lifeless sandy Mars and rocky plateaus, you can find a very rare mineral called Libyan desert glass. This glassy rock is made up of 98% silicon oxide, SaO2. At first glance, Libyan glass looks like broken yellow-green bottle glass with different shades of color. Since ancient times, people have known about Libyan glass. It was used to make the scarab beetle, which was decorated the medallion of Tutankhamun, one of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs, and represented fertility to the ancient Egyptians. During the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1916, Howard Carter, a British archaeologist, first discovered the medallion. The origins of Libyan glass are a question that is unclear. Libyan desert glass was made about 29 million years ago. Based on how old it is, there is no theory that most people agree on about where it came from. Most scientists think the glass was made when a meteor hit Earth. Minerals like batolite, zero-2, and moissanite, Si, which can only form at temperatures above 1600 degrees Celsius, are found in the glass. This is hotter than any igneous rock on Earth. People who believe in the comet hypothesis think that Libyan desert glass is made of comet nuclei that have been changed. But there isn't enough good evidence to prove the comet hypothesis, which is why it hasn't gained much support in the scientific community yet. You could say the same thing about the meteorite theory. Most of the Libyan glass places were not near any meteorite craters. The Kebira crater, which has a diameter of 31 kilometers, was discovered 100 kilometers from the location of the glass find in 2007. This is when it changed. The origins of Libyan desert glass may be explained by the Kebira crater. The Sahara Desert has many more secrets that are very interesting. The most amazing fact about it is that in the distant past, it was like the lush green Garden of Eden. But the same thing could happen again. Assistant Professor of Earth Systems at the University of California, Irvine, Kathleen Johnson, says that the Green Sahara period, also called the African Wet Period, was caused by the Earth's ever-changing rotation around its axis, a pattern that happens every 23,000 years. So the Sahara could become the Garden of Eden again in as little as 10,000 years. But these estimates can be wrong because people release greenhouse gases, which change the climate. It is not clear when or even if the Sahara will become green again. Again, we come to the conclusion that we have to do something. Always happens.